on standby generator or inverter, exemplary lifestyle, school population. Then you give farewell or goodwill messages. Talking about the judicious use of pension, fruition of his labor, either biological or otherwise. How to be more fruitful at retirement. Long life to enjoy the fruit of his labor. He will not sow and another reaps. Now, here are some steps to take. The first step here is the heading. An example is suggested. Speech delivered by Ms. Splendor Ande, the senior prefect, on the occasion of the retirement of the principal in the person of Mgbede Uga Otondo on the 18th of April 2021 at the Assembly Hall, Higher Heights College, Genoa, Kogi. 2. You talk about salutation. The chairman, the principal that is retiring, vice principals, HODs, teaching and non-teaching staff, parents, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen. Here also is a suggested example of your introduction. It is a great opportunity for me and the Splendor, the senior prefect of this great school, to address you or deliver a speech on the importance on this important occasion of our beloved principal and father in the person of Mr. Mgbede on his retirement. Truly, the adage that a journey of 1,000 miles begins only with a step. The journey of 45 years for Mr. Mgbede has come to an end today. That could be your introduction. Now, talking about the body. Talk about not only that he started and made it this way. You can talk about the following. Some must have fallen by the wayside, while others would have gone to the great beyond. Mention few of his achievements. For instance, prizes, educational excellence, standby generator, an inverter, exemplary life, just like we have mentioned before. Then send your goodwill messages, talking about the judicious use of his pension, that he will not spend his pension on sickness. He will reap the labor of his hands, and that he will be more fruitful on his retirement. Then you go to your conclusion, which is, on behalf of this great college, I wish you a happy retirement. Andy Splendor. Question 2 is, as one of the outgoing prefects in your school, write a speech you would deliver at the send-off ceremony for prefects on the topic, the challenges of prefectship. Now, we have some reasons here. Reasons or points with which you will express yourself. Harmony of academic work and school duties, discipline, punctuality and neatness, a charge to keep, a fight to fight on, exemplary lifestyle, tolerance. Now, what are the demands of this question? The first thing to do here is the heading. There is also a suggested example. For instance, speech delivered by Mr. Oyale Adakole, the senior prefect of Sound Mind Academy, Iga Opaya, on the send-off ceremony for prefects on the 20th April 2021 at the College Multipurpose Hall at 2 p.m. 2. You go to your salutation. The principal, vice principals, HODs, HOSs, teaching and non-teaching staff, parents, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen. Introduction. Also, there is a suggested one here. I feel highly privileged and delighted to have been requested to give this speech on behalf of the outgoing prefects for the 2021 session on the topic Challenges of Prefectship. Another paragraph. Permit me to undersee who a prefect is and what a challenge is. The two key words in the speech. A prefect is a student the school authority has appointed to take charge or control other students, including his or her classmates. A challenge, on the other hand, is a difficulty encountered in the discharge of duties or an assignment. In view of this, let me briefly highlight some of the challenges of prefectship in the secondary school system. Another paragraph. One of the grievous challenges faced by a prefect is the ability to harmonize academic and school activities without lopsidedness. No area must suffer. The academic nor other activities must not suffer. Now give examples of how a prefect will be able to combine the academic work and other duties that is learning on him. Example, there is no special lesson for prefects. Both prefects and ordinary students undergo same lesson periods. They have to be more apt. A prefect can be called out of the class at any time to attend to one thing or the other. Further challenge faced by a prefect is that of discipline. A high sense of discipline dawns on a student instantly when that responsibility is given. You can give examples. Then talk about punctuality and neatness. As a prefect, one has become a role model both to one's classmates and others, as if prefects breathe different air. And you can still give example. One is being reminded almost everywhere in the school with phrases such as a prefect, being a prefect, as if a prefect has become an angel and must be perfect in all wise. As prefects, there's always a charge to keep. Talk about how exemplary a prefect should be. You can give example of tolerance. That tolerance is a great virtue, never to be treated or held with levity. Otherwise, the prefect can unconsciously throw in the towel and give up. I do hope that we will meet again at a higher level in the nearest future. That's the conclusion. Question 3 is, as a senior prefect of your college, your principal has requested that you give a farewell speech on the day of the send-off party for 2 of your teachers who are leaving your college. Write your speech. The first thing to do is your heading. Now, after your heading, I have a suggested heading here. Speech by Daniel Hippolyte, the senior prefect of Arrows in his Quiver College, Eche, on the send-off party of 2 members of staff on the 18th of May 2028 at the college conference hall at 3 p.m. Now, your salutation. The principal, members of staff, outgoing teachers, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen. Introduction. I feel privileged to have been requested by the principal of this great college to give this speech. I welcome you all to this occasion as we send off our members of staff, Mr. Philip Ede and Miss Perfection Ilya. They both have been of great help to the school as they helped to curb indiscipline in the college. Mr. Ede, born on the 25th of May 1970, completed his primary and secondary education in the middle belt of this country. He later went to the United States of America, where he studied industrial mathematics in one of the best universities, a year later after his secondary school education. He spent a few years there after graduation and decided to come back to his fatherland, Nigeria. He was a hotcake, and so he rendered good services to several organizations before coming to this great college in 2010. To the school as the final year students in 2010, and he really gave students the best. His hard work brought no small honor to the school, as the final year students of that session had the best result in mathematics in the Federation. This earned him a promotion as the head of the Department of Mathematics of the college from that year until now. Talk about what he has done, how he had stopped some bad habits, and so on and so forth. Then come briefly talk about the second staff. Ms. Prefectship, an English teacher or a teacher of English from Benue State University, is another person to be reckoned with and be remembered always by the students. Prefectship gave her best to the students. Consequently, she was made the matron of the press and debate club of the school. Her availability during competitions helped the students to be well equipped. Hence, they always come back victorious. The result of her hard work lifted the image of the school tremendously, thereby increasing the population of the school. She was ever ready to give lectures to students, even after school, and in fact, during holidays. An example that remains ever fresh in my memory was when Peter and I met her in a mall with a question. She took us into her car and explained things to us. A gem indeed. The school will miss you, ma. These two members of staff, having talked briefly on both staff, you can bring your write-up to a conclusion talking about the two of them. These two members of staff were of great help to the school as they helped to train students academically, morally, and otherwise. In view of this, the school has agreed to give them a befitting send-off. It is my hope that their absence in the college will not bring discouragement to the students, but rather will make ample use of the skills, discipline, knowledge, and all they have acquired from these amiable members of staff. The students and the school as a whole wish them happy stay wherever they will be. You both will live to partake of the labors of your hands. Mr. Philip Ede and Ms. Prefectship, thank you for a job well done. May the Almighty God bless you indeed. You have cast your bread upon the waters. You will definitely see it after many years. For the audience, thank you for honoring our invitation to this send-off party. God's protection and guidance is my wish for all of you. May this great school continue to go higher and higher. In fact, the sky is the starting point for us all.
You can subscribe to NTA series on YouTube to watch or download past episodes of revision classes on television. That's the much we can take on the program today. Do join us next time for another educating session.
The NOA, for example, has succeeded a great deal in sensitization during the pandemic, and we have found the community mobilization officers most effective in the sensitization and in the advocacy campaigns, creating awareness on the coronavirus pandemic. We have done this through the production of jingles, which were very widely distributed in different languages, in English, in Hausa, in Yoruba, in Igbo, in Tiv, in Igala, in Kanuri, in Fulfulde, in Ijo, in Isoko, in Bini. In talk of any other language you can think of. We had translated sensitization messages.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Since coming into office in 2015, the Buhari administration has recorded unprecedented achievements in all sectors, especially in the provision of infrastructure, which is the key to economic growth. Never in the history of this country has any administration done so much with so little. I recall that when this administration came into office, the price of crude oil, which provides for 80% of Nigeria's budgetary revenues and 95% of foreign exchange earning, dropped drastically, thus reducing the amount of resources available to the federal government. In spite of this, the administration has continued apace with massive infrastructure developments.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing type based on surveys we did in 2015, 2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 34 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
This is the network service of the NTA.
The spread of the super contagious COVID-19 Delta variant is prompting new wave of lockdown around the world and fresh warnings from public health officials. Now, the confirmation of the Delta variant of SARS-CoV-2 in Nigeria is increasing focus on the pandemic, with fresh concerns of possible third wave in Nigeria. The variant was detected in a traveler to Nigeria following the routine travel test required of all international travelers and genomic sequencing at the NCDC National Reference Laboratory, Abuja. The much talked about Delta variant is recognized by the World Health Organization as a variant of concern given its high rate of transmission. Some doctors and public health departments reported that people infected with the Delta variant present symptoms quite different from the original classic signs of COVID-19, which include cough, loss of taste or smell, and fever. For the first time in more than a year, the world was having some high hope or at least cautious optimism that the pandemic could recede to the background. But alas, experts are warning that there is still concern that new mutation of the virus could escalate the pandemic. Already, the Delta variant has been detected in more than 90 countries and is expected to spread to more countries, of course, without visas. Welcome to 30 Minutes on NTA News 24. I'm Lydia Sampson. Our first report by Thomas Egbetere is looking at COVID-19 Delta variant, the source, symptom, mode of transmission, and why it is called Delta variant. It's over to you, Thomas.
The COVID-19 Delta variant no doubt has become a global threat because of its more virulent nature with a higher death rate. It is said to take lesser time to go extreme sometimes without symptoms. This strain, according to experts, directly affect the lungs, which means the window period of time are shorter. NASA swab tests are often said to be negative for COVID-19 Delta variants. This means the virus spreads directly to the lungs, causing acute respiratory stress caused by viral pneumonia. This explains why it has become sharp, more virulent and deadly.
The thing is that we must know that we are dealing with the same organism, SARS-CoV-2. It has not changed. But what we have is that we have mutation taking place around this organism. And then we have what we call changes in what we call the S protein of this organism. This makes it significantly that the reaction and then the transmission and then its effects on individual will have to change. You must recall that there should be, when an organism comes into the body, there is this attachment between the receptors and then what we call the key lock effect. Now, in this case, you also have, in our own body, we have what we call ACE receptors, which will actually come in contact and bind together with the S protein. Now, when there is a change in mutation in the S protein, there are bound to be a lot of gamut of changes that takes place. One of those changes is transmissibility, and also what we call the attachment and internalization of this organism. What this simply means that the time taken for this organism to now get into our real body after it has attached in our oral, nasal, mucosal area is kind of like shortened. And it now means that when we talk about natural incubation period of our 14 days and some days, maybe 7 days, in this case it is shortened such that the individual can actually quickly have that. And this is one of those significant effects, because when you see individuals traveling from one country to the other, they will say they have already done their PCR test and it was negative. And when you now look at it, that 2 days after or a day after, and then they've taken a trip, taking a trip to another country, and they are there within 1 day or two, and they will not do a repeat test, and they'll say, here you are positive for SARS-CoV-2, most especially the Delta variant. And they will just wonder that, how can that be within 2-3 days? But this actually shows what we call the shortened time of attachment, internalization, and infective process to take place. And this now also talks about what we call transmissibility. The mode of transmission is the same, but it just makes it more aggressive in terms of attachment, internalization, and also in terms of transmission of the organism. It now tells us that in terms of the pathogenetic effect, in terms of the pathogenetic effect, we actually have this organism to be more very, very dangerous.
The COVID-19 Delta variant was first discovered in India and has since spread to some other nations of the world, like the United States, the UK, and recently Nigeria. According to some experts, they have seen patients without fever or pain, but had mild chest pneumonia on their X-rays.
Compared to the original coronavirus that we know, the rate at which it transmits now is very rapid than the very particular one. So that is why it is called a variant of concern, and that's why everybody is talking about it, because if you look, between June and this July, we are celebrating that we are actually winning the battle against coronavirus. Then all of a sudden, this Delta variant came that is ravaging the world, and everybody is concerned now that, are we going to go back to where we are coming from, despite the measure that we have in place? Take, for instance, we have the COVID vaccine in place now that everybody is jubilating. Okay, it's helping us in curbing this pandemic. But these variants now, because of the configuration and changes in the spike protein that they have that make them to be able to affect many people, everybody is afraid that will the vaccine be able to actually curb the effect of this Delta variant? Even though, as we are still combating Delta variants, I'm sincerely telling you, there is another younger brother of the Delta variant that we call Delta variant plus. That Delta variant plus has the same characteristics as Delta variant, but when you are a younger brother of the devil, you might be able to do more than the devil itself. Do you understand? Looking at the coronavirus and the Delta variants, can we say they are different or they are not different? Yes, they are different in the sense that the normal coronavirus have certain way in which it presents, like in January, between December and January in Nigeria, you know, we have the second wave of coronavirus. So as a frontline health care personnel, I was able to cater for several number of people that had coronavirus. So we're able to see different ways in which patients presented. There are some of them that presented with headache, fever, they feel tired, they have cough, they have inability to smell, they lost their sense of taste of food. In fact, there are some of them that I saw that all they just presented is change in the way they perceive smell or taste food. They did not lose their sense of smell or taste perfectly well. So they just have a change in which they perceive that maybe something that has been smelling nice, that very good perfume before, just started smelling bad. Or the food that doesn't taste salty before started becoming salty. Those are the symptoms they presented with. So when we look at this particular Delta variant now, the only thing we discovered that about it is that, okay, aside the other symptoms that is common with other coronavirus, we noticed that, like in UK, which is the second country apart from India that the coronavirus Delta strain actually was enormous, the study they did there showed that people that were infected with the Delta variant, they complain more of headache, they have running nose, they have fever, and they feel weak. You understand? Which is also the signs and symptoms that were seen in the original coronavirus. Then the striking features in this particular one is that most of the patients that came down with the Delta variant, they don't have loss of sense of smell or taste, unlike before. I could vividly remember December 2020, if a patient just comes to our hospital and say they are not feeling fine, one of the particular questions we want to ask them is there any change in the way you perceive smell or taste? Or have you lost your sense of smell or taste? So if we have to base our clinical acumen and ability to suspect Delta variant on that now, that means many people will come into our hospital and we will know they are actually having coronavirus.
Given the risks of the surge in COVID-19 cases across the country in recent times, experts have urged Nigerians to continue to ensure strict adherence to COVID-19 preventive measures, including hand washing, proper use of face masks in public settings, physical distancing, and avoiding large crowds, and when possible, availing themselves the opportunity of vaccination.
The polymerase chain reaction testing is a way in which we can actually discover any form of virus. So it's a sensitive test that determines certain fragments or protein that is particular to certain viruses, and that is what the PCR test does. So PCR test will still be able to tell us if you have COVID-19 or not, even though there are some instances whereby we've reported a false negative results of a PCR test. I wouldn't say that is a lie. It happened in US. In fact, there was a patient I managed that result came back negative, but clinically looking, I knew this patient had COVID-19. So I sent the patient to go and run the test in another center, NCDC approved center, and the result came back positive. So taking a look at that, it's not only Nigeria that has happened. It happened. I read an article that they experienced the same thing in US. So it's all a function of the amplification rate for them to be able to amplify the sample to a detection level in which you can say, oh, this particular sample contains COVID-19 or not. Then when that sample is being classified as positive, then it can be sequenced so that we can know, is this particular one Delta strain or not.
The need to always appreciate all those at the forefront of the fight against COVID-19 from the very first day came to the fore.
Thank you so much, the Presidential Steering Implementation Committee, formerly known as the Presidential Task Force. Fantastic work being done. We will say thank you for the great work that have been done. They've really served as the father, as a parent response team by giving us the sense of direction we will go. And I will also congratulate the new this coordinator of the Presidential Steering Committee, Dr. Mukhtar. I mean, he's always there, he's always working on infection, and also to our Secretary to Federal Government, Boss Mustafa, who has who has been a father encouraging the healthcare worker, in fact, the various healthcare workers at various instances, and they're always there to support. You remember that time that we require a lot of oxygen in most of the treatment. They made it what we call top priority, and they went around most of these treatment centers, including the one in Gwagwalada, to make sure that the oxygens are provided, the more oxygen plants are provided, and then the movement of oxygen from Yola down. This is amazing and it's fantastic. So the healthcare worker, what can we say? Just to say thank you for still keeping on and holding on to this.
They also suggested the use of double face masks if possible, strict enforcement of COVID-19 protocol, and also intensify surveillance at the various points of entry into the country, as well as travel restriction from the 4 countries categorized as high risk. These countries are India, Brazil, Turkey, and South Africa.
Thank you, Thomas. Now, we also sought to know how deadly the Delta variant is, the difference between the Delta variant and other variants, how can it be managed, and what are the safety precautions? Let's get all the details from Olusheye Adeagu.
It is more than 17 months that countries across the globe have been affected by the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. Nigeria is having its share as updates on the COVID-19 cases from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) indicate a surge which translates to an increase from 1.1% at the end of June to 6% at the moment. The latest of the variants, the Delta variant, which is the fourth of the variants, was first detected around December-January 2021 and has been reported in over 124 countries, with expectation that it will continue to spread. The symptoms of the Delta variants appear to be the same as the original version of COVID-19. Recent research found that the Delta variant grows more rapidly and to much greater levels in the respiratory tract. The World Health Organization described the Delta variant as a variant of concern as it is more dangerous and has continued to evolve and mutate.
The Delta variant is ripping around the world at a scorching pace, driving a new spike in cases and death. After 10 weeks of declines, deaths are increasing again. We continue to hear reports from all regions of the world about hospitals reaching capacity. For health workers that have been in a titanic battle for more than a year and have record waiting lists to attend to, increased hospitalizations at any level is a challenge to them and their patients.
Once viruses starts, as they complete to replicate, they mutate. Mutation means they change their form of what originally they were. For this particular virus, it has changed. It started with the alpha, the beta, now the delta. In some climes, they also have the lambda. This one is the one that's coming out of places like Peru, South America. But the one that is drawing the attention of the world as we speak is the Delta variant, which started from India. So it's just a way for the medical world to follow the changing phases of the virus. And usually a genome sequencing technology is used to be able to know whether the virus has changed its form and character. And this one has actually changed significantly in form and character.
This is another area of concern, again, that is already causing a lot of fear globally. It is an aspect or a variant, as the name connotes, from the COVID-19 itself. It has already causing a third wave resurge in some countries, notably India, Pakistan, Brazil, and of recent, South Africa.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) confirmed case of SARS-CoV-2 known as the Delta variant in Nigeria early June 2021, with numbers of cases already confirmed.
We've also built up our genomic sequencing capabilities, which has led, unfortunately, to the situation in Akwa Ibom State, where right now 80% of all the recently that confirmed cases have been confirmed to be the Delta variant, which means that transmission is likely to be a lot more intense, and we have to redouble all the efforts that we've been making to contain the spread of this virus. But the fact is that we're now in the third wave of this outbreak in Nigeria. Having said that, cases are predominantly in a few states, but as we know, we are an interconnected country. People will travel, and it's very likely that very soon we'll see increases in other states.
Experts who recommend some level of protection also pointed that taking the vaccine does not prevent one from being infected, but will prevent one from severe consequences. Therefore, there is the need to continue to take all the precautionary measures through strict observance of the non-pharmaceutical protocol.
There have been a few studies that have shown that even with the Delta variant, the vaccine is very effective in preventing severe cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, right? Which is ultimately what we want to achieve. There's been some new data over the last week that transmission might still happen, even if you're vaccinated. But to be honest, it's a theoretical construct because, yes, transmission could lead to more cases and ultimately more deaths, but in itself, in that individual patient, if you're vaccinated and you still get the infected, you're much less likely to have a severe illness.
In fact, what is happening in America is a very good lead. Where 90% of the people who are in hospitals are people who didn't get any vaccination at all. And then in communities where the thing is ravaging, are communities where you have very low rate of vaccination. So there is a strong scientific evidence that is protecting people. So the same thing for Nigeria. For people who were able to take the AstraZeneca vaccine, it means they will have some degree, very good degree of protection against the virus. But there's still a small set of people who are immunocompromised, who even though they receive the vaccine, the response rate of the body to producing antibodies to protect them might not be as good as a healthy person. But all the same, they are also much more, should I say, protected than somebody who did not get any vaccination at all.
Well, government have taken so many measures. And like I said, health is wealth. It's everybody's business. Whichever religion, Muslim, Christian, or free faith and so on, or pagan, and there is no scripture that said you don't take responsibility for your life. So it is onus on us, everybody, individual and collectively, to understand that the protocol that is in place is the best way out. Whether we like it or not, like I said, this disease have come to stay.
The federal government's push for more vaccines is already yielding results, with Nigeria taking delivery of 4,080,000 doses of Moderna COVID-19 vaccine from the United States government. The arrival of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine is considered a boost for the national response, and Medical Officer World Health Organization also testifies to its efficiency in offering protection against COVID-19.
So the adverse effect following immunization for the Moderna vaccine was quite low. Nigeria has a good monitoring system of AEFI. So the vaccine is highly effective, so more over 94%. So the advice would be to continue to get vaccinated. The vaccine is quite good. And then the monitoring system will still be effective, will still be around just to monitor any adverse effect if there is any. For the Delta variants, what the data is showing us is that those vaccines are really effective against severe disease and also hospitalization. So we know that for the Delta variant, so we're good to go.
For those who have taken the first dose of AstraZeneca, we're expecting within the next week or so additional consignment of AstraZeneca vaccines that we will give as second doses. But even beyond the almost 700,000 doses that we're expecting in the next week or so, we expect that right around mid-August. We will get up to 3.9 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. So additional doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine will be coming to Nigeria, and we'll be able to cater for those people who have taken their first doses. We'll give them second doses, but beyond that, there will be additional opportunities for people to be given AstraZeneca vaccine if that is what their preference is. So we now have, a large menu that Nigerians can choose from, whether it's AstraZeneca, Moderna, or the Pfizer, and then the J&J vaccines that will be coming subsequently.
Nigeria has a very well-established and very effective cold chain system that has been enhanced to meet the additional, especially ultra cold chain system that's been fully checked, and as His Excellency the Executive Director for MPHCDA has said, that has been sent out to each of the states, so as soon as the vaccines are cleared, they will go straight to the states where there is enough capacity and enough storage to accommodate them for quick use. What we would say is that the quicker these are used, the better, because then the next round can come in and be used effectively as well.
Respondents advised members of the public to support government efforts in the management and prevention of the spread of the virus.
The federal government, through the Presidential Steering Committee, has initiated several measures to reduce the risks of spread of COVID-19. Already, 6 states, Lagos, Oyo, Rivers, Kaduna, Kano, Plateau, and FCT, has been placed on red alert, while all states in general have been asked to heighten preparedness and response plans. Other measures by the Presidential Steering Committee include travel restrictions from high-burden countries associated with widespread prevalence of variants of concern. In addition, given the high transmissibility of the Delta variant and following its detection in Nigeria, the NCDC urges all Nigerians to comply with all public health advisories, which include physical distancing, frequent hand washing, and proper use of face masks to prevent infection and save lives. Next week, we'll be back with another critical issue on 30 Minutes on NTA News 24. Thanks for watching. I'm Lydia Sampson.
Arise, O Nigerians! Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
I'm the Chief Resident Engineer and Project Supervisor of the Second Niger Bridge Project. The Second Niger Bridge Project is a project that has been conceived for a very long time, but it has finally come to life during this present administration. This project has a lot of socio-economic benefits, and it has impacted positively on the lives of the host communities, both in Anambra State and Delta State. The people are very happy. The host communities, they partnered with us because apart from the social benefits, indigenes are also employed on this project. We can see how their lives are being improved.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We started with a very aggressive response from the very beginning. If you remember the very first case in Nigeria, very well contained, very few infections arose from that. We started airport screenings and temperature checks way before anyone really understood what was going on. On the front lines of the response, the team here at the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, supported all the 36 states. At some point, we had teams in 32 of our 36 states concurrently, leading the response, the emergency operations centers, making sure we're getting the surveillance data, building up our information resources on our website. Our website became one of the most visited websites on the continent, as many other African countries were looking to the leadership Nigerians provided. At our Incident Coordination Center, people were working literally 14, 15 hours every single day.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation. In our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities. And we've been able to also recover, particularly arms and ammunition, from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Last 1.5 years or so since the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen massive changes in the way we do things at NPH-CDA. Working with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, we were able to actually roll out in the first couple of weeks a massive community-based program that looked at how we could quickly mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 in the communities. So we rolled out a training that involved over 220,000 primary healthcare workers all across Nigeria. We are seeing how we've been able to now achieve pre-COVID levels in terms of the routine immunization services. That is really
President Buhari expresses commitment to ending insecurity before tenure elapses.
Also made it very, very clear that he's not ready to exit government as a failure. He's not going to tolerate that. He's made changes and is ready to make further changes if he's not satisfied.
Federal government approves review of grazing reserves in 25 states.
Minister of State for Petroleum Resources inaugurates the Petroleum Industry Act Implementation Steering Committee.
One of the immediate effects of the Act is that it will generate investors' interest in Nigeria, in the Nigeria oil and gas sector.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on mitigating communal conflicts.
All right, now let's start with this quote. In a world filled with hate, we must still dare to hope. In a world filled with anger, we must still dare to comfort. In a world filled with despair, we must still dare to dream. And in a world filled with distrust, we must still dare to believe.
Well, that was from the late American recording artist, singer and songwriter, the biggest pop star of all times, Michael Jackson.
Very correct, Kingsley. And Mahatma Gandhi of India once said, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. Nigeria as a country has had its own fair share of different forms of security challenges, ranging from farmer-herder conflict, banditry, kidnapping, among others.
Well, human life, as it were, is fast losing value in today's Nigeria, as thousands of lives have been lost, with property also having been destroyed by hundreds of persons who, of course, have been rampaging in different parts of the country. Millions have equally been displaced and their means of livelihood disrupted on account of the dimensions of security challenges we are witnessing in the country today.
Plateau State is among such states that have been faced with a conflict in the past. Eventually, there was some form of respite in the state, but lately all is not well in that state, going by the spate of attacks and the counterattacks in some local government areas of the state.
Well, Kira, you recall that just the Plateau State capital had been a killing field of late, with attacks and counterattacks that have left many persons dead. And of course, last weekend, we, of course, got to know that several other persons are yet to be accounted for.
And shortly after, there were also reports of 7 journalists, all staff of Plateau Radio Television Corporation, who escaped death when their vehicle came under attack by hoodlums at Darinkoa in Jos South local government area on their way home after work. And Darinkoa, by the way, is also in the heart of the city.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But that's very curious, because there was a positive development nearly 10 years ago out of Darinkoa, where there was a communal security and peace-building arrangement. But apparently that has unraveled. Now, to prevent further breakdown of law and order in Plateau State and contain the spread of conflict, a 24-hour curfew was imposed on some of the local government areas by the state government.
Key players in Plateau State held an emergency meeting over the situation, where they vowed to unite against the return of conflict in that state, and also in continued search for permanent solutions to persistent attacks in Bassa local government area of the state. Governor Simon Lalong had engagements with various leaders.
Now, while the curfew imposed has now been relaxed in Jos North local government area and security forces are now patrolling the area, there is still palpable tension on the plateau. So what can be done to mitigate the conflicts and bring lasting peace to the state? What, however, is responsible for the recent crisis, and what are the issues in contention? I'm Kingsley Osadola. We shall, of course, be interrogating those questions in our conversation segment on Good Morning Nigeria today, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority.
And I am Kieran Umai, also joining Kingsley to welcome you to this edition of the program. And just like he indicated, we are live on our Abuja studios in Nigeria's capital city. As usual, we have complementary segments in the course of the program. For now, here is our colleague, Dennis Adegunloye, with the morning news. Hello, Dennis.
Yep, good morning, Kieran and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. The crucial meeting of the National Security Council ended with a strong conviction by the Buhari presidency that normalcy will be fully restored to the nation's security situation before its tenure elapses. The National Security Advisor, Baba Gana Mongunu, who briefed newsmen after the meeting, said President Muhammadu Buhari was unequivocal in his submission to the council members that he is not prepared to hand over a security-challenged Nigeria to his successor.
Large numbers of people are surrendering in the northeast as a consequence of the relentless efforts of the armed forces, intelligence and security agencies. This is very, very evident. We've never had such large numbers of people defecting from the other side back to the Nigerian side. The president is quite happy that there's been tremendous success, especially with the advent of the new service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, and he's also made it very, very clear that he's not ready to exit government as a failure. He's not going to tolerate that. He's made changes and is ready to make further changes if he's not satisfied.
A renowned Islamic scholar and leader of the Tijaniya sect, Sheikh Dahiru Usman Bauchi, has formally briefed President Muhammadu Buhari on the recent incidents in Jos Plateau State, where some of his followers lost their lives.
The major highlights of the discussion, firstly, Mr. President condoled the Sheikh and he assured him that he has directed relevant institutions to investigate and do justice. He appreciated the Sheikh for the way he promotes peace, and at the same time he urged his followers to always be law-abiding. The Sheikh also presented some solutions to Mr. President for consideration, firstly on what happened, and secondly something that will bring everlasting peace in the country.
The host communities of oil and gas in Nigeria have commended the Buhari administration for signing the Petroleum Industry Bill into law.
10 years we have been waiting and waiting. What we have been waiting for has been given to us. And so we are here to celebrate this PIA 3% for a starting point. The issue is that this law is a law that favors the host community. And so I want to appeal to all leaders of the Niger Delta to please share your sword. Let there be peace so that we can think of how to manage this fund.
Meanwhile, Minister of State Petroleum Resources Temipire Silva has called for deliberate efforts from members of the Petroleum Industry Act Implementation Steering Committee to implement the law in a manner that best achieves the objectives of enthronement of a vibrant, sustainable, efficient and investment-friendly petroleum industry. Silva said this is the only way to improve the country's revenue base, create jobs and support the government's economic diversification agenda.
Going forward, one of the immediate effects of the Act is that it will generate investors' interest in Nigeria, in the Nigeria oil and gas sector. And within the coming months and years, we expect to see a sizable increase in foreign direct investment.
President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the recommendations of a committee which he assigned to determine the level of encroachment in 368 grazing sites across 25 states in the country. The committee recommended the collection of field data collection on the grazing reserves to assess encroachment, stakeholder engagements and sensitization. It also recommended production of maps, geomapping and tagging of sites, analysis of findings and report preparations, as well as the design of appropriate communication on grazing reserves and operations. The number of the grazing reserves and states were deduced from considerations of existing security concerns and other pre-existing socio-economic conditions. The committee, which was chaired by the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, had as its members Governor of Kebbi State and Vice Chairman, National Food Security Council, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, Governor of Ebonyi State and Chairman of the NEC Subcommittee for National Livestock Transformation Plan, David Umahi, Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Sabu Nanono, Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, and the Deputy Chief of Staff, Ade Ikpaye. The technical subcommittee consisted of representatives from the 7 members of the main committee, in addition to representatives from the Ministry of Justice, the Surveyor General of the Federation, the National Agriculture Land Development Authority, NALDA, and the National Space Research Development Agency. The rate of COVID-19 infections remain high as the NTDC has announced 674 new cases of COVID-19 in the country. The latest figures released indicate that Lagos leads with 355 new cases, followed by Rivers recording 87 new cases. FCT records 38, Ogun 33, Akwa Ibom and Oyo 32 cases each, Ekiti 20, Kwara 17, Delta 12 and Bayelsa 8. Others Recording new cases are Gombe 5, Kaduna and Osun 4 each, Enugu and Nasarawa State 2 each, while a single case was recorded in Plateau State. Nigeria now has 185,267 confirmed cases, out of which 167,923 have been treated and discharged. 2,244 people have so far died of the virus, unfortunately. Well, that concludes the news segment for now. The programme continues shortly with Kieran and Kingsley. Good morning.
Arise, O Nigerians! Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Babe? Hey! Hi!
It's hard to live when you are all alone.
Hi. So my card isn't working. Hello?
All I hear with the
Good morning. I'm pretty sorry I'm late. Where are you guys going? Hello? Can anybody hear me? Can you see me?
Get an Airtel Home Broadband and enjoy life as it should be.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Admission forms into NTA Television College JOS 2021-2022 2-year National Innovation Diploma Program are on sale from 9th of August to 29th of October 2021. Candidates who wish to apply for admission must have 5 O-level credits in relevant subjects including English language and mathematics. The courses available for application include film and television production, broadcast journalism, and television engineering technology. The admission forms can be obtained at NTA Television College or any NTA station nationwide at the cost of 7,500 naira only. Payment for the form is through remitter platform only in favor of NTA Television College. For more inquiries, please call 0803 079 5335 or 0806 980 9807. Management Announcer.
Leeds United will look to scrape themselves off the bottom of the table when they welcome Everton to Elland Road in their second game of the season. This Saturday, it's Leeds United versus Everton on the Premier League Live, showing on the network service of the NTA from 2:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijebu and powered by Integral.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. on NTA network service. Now, let's go business. Federal government pledges continuous support to the Nigerian capital market to boost investor confidence. Details of this and more with Comforter Modu on Business News.
Taking into account the major role the stock market plays, particularly through the government and corporate entities, to raise long-term capital for financing new projects, the federal government says it is imperative to strengthen the operations to boost investor confidence and also develop the real sector.
It is therefore imperative that economic growth in a modern society be hinged on an efficient and effective financial sector that pools domestic savings, encourages foreign direct investments to mobilize capital for productive projects in support of a nation's development agenda.
And this entity is growing really fast. Today, it has underwritten bonds worth $43 billion and has a pipeline of over $200 billion of bonds that it will underwrite. Now, I believe that this sort of entity will be very important in ensuring that, again, companies access fairly priced bonds that they can then use to strengthen their companies and ultimately see these companies list in the capital market.
Recall that the capital market was instrumental to the initial 25 banks that were able to meet the minimum capital requirement of 25 billion naira during the banking sector consolidation in 2005. With Business News, Comfort and Modu.
Thank you very much, Comfort Amodu, for the business package. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
And we have Bayo Toyebi, newspaper reviewer here. Bayo, good morning.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kieran?
All right, now let's start with the Nation newspaper. Above the name flag, we have COVID-19 cases rise by 97% in 3 days. Faweme's son, a victim. That's on page 2. President OK's review of grazing reserves in 25 states. That's on page 5. Kogi West elders demand governorship slot in 2023. On page 27. IOC is owing NDDC $4 billion, says Niger Delta minister. That's on page 5. Now, below the nameplate, PIA Frontier Basins funds to cover Cross River and Anambra. Save as implementation panel inaugurated. Banks forest dealings under close EFCC watch. Bauer bank CEOs meet. 100 APC members ask court to dissolve party's national caretaker committee. That's on page 6. Now the lead story is on insecurity. Buhari threatens removal of military chiefs. 3 riders. I won't leave Nigeria in security crisis. Obasanjo, situation bad but redeemable. We are winning terror war, says minister. Of course, all that on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Borno IGR at the foot of the paper. Borno IGR up by 24%, says Zulum. Is on page 27. Kaduna NUT rejects test for members. That's on page 27 of the Nation newspaper.
Okay, let's see the leadership Friday. That's today's edition of the paper. Just below the name flag says Wike, that's Governor Rivers, signs anti-open grazing and VAT collection bills. Wike signs anti-open grazing and VAT collection bills. Zulum seeks upward review of federal allocation. And the lead story comes with a kicker, Masari's self-defense call. It's better to buy arms than to pay ransom, says Katsina government. We have a number of riders accompanying that. I won't leave Nigeria in crisis. That's according to President Buhari. Our soldiers winning war against terror, federal government. We will not answer alleged rights abuses by troops, Nigeria tells U.S. President Buhari approves review of 368 grazing sites in 25 states. Anambra poll, INEC restores Soludo as ABGA candidate. Ex-Abia Governor Orji and son invited by EFCC released on bail. Kogi West elders want power shift to zone. Nigeria's situation bad but redeemable. That's according to former President Obasanjo. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with the concerns about security. President Muhammadu Buhari has promised to do everything possible to address the security challenges in the country. He expressed this while after the meeting with security chiefs. The National Security Advisor, in a brief after that meeting, indicated that the president expressed the wish not to leave office as a failure by ensuring that all security challenges are put to rest. At the briefing, the National Security Advisor says he expressed readiness to make more changes to ensure that the turnaround in the fortunes of the theater of operations is sustained. He expressed his appreciation with the successes so far achieved with the advent of the new service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police. And he said that the synergy between the security agencies, especially in the area of sharing intelligence, has gone a long way in redeeming the efforts towards redeeming insurgency. Meanwhile, Minister of Information has also emphasized that Nigeria is winning the war against insurgency, but the war is not yet fully won. The Minister of Information and Culture says that insurgents have been surrendering to troops in recent times. He says they are not only surrendering their weapons, but they are also coming with their relations and families. The minister, who featured on the foreign radio program, also emphasized that there is a danger with insurgency Boko Haram because ideology is always difficult to overcome. So Nigeria can learn a lesson from what is happening in Afghanistan, that ideology can be very challenging, especially when it is very deeply ingrained. He says, yes, there are challenges of banditry and separatism and kidnapping in Nigeria, but Nigeria cannot certainly be described as a failed state. He says, I live in Nigeria, I work in Nigeria, I travel across Nigeria. Nigeria is certainly not a failed state. On the issue of grazing sites, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the review of 368 grazing sites across 25 states of the Federation. This is the determination of to determine the level of encroachment and encroaching by stakeholder engagements as well as sensitization. The committee is headed by the Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the Chief of Staff to the President, and is to see to the production of maps, geo-mapping tagging sites, as well as design and appropriate communication on the reserve operations. Meanwhile, the committee, which is constituted and comprised governors of Kebbi, Ebonyi, in their capacities as the head of the National Food Security and National Livestock Transportation, also has the ministers of water resources, agriculture, environment, and the deputy chief of staff as members. Apart from collating and confirming the status of grazing reserves, they will assess the percentage of available land and encroachment complications for cases by case for the purposes of resolution. In the area of security, Governor Simon Lalong has relaxed the curfew imposed in Jos North. It used to be a 24-hour curfew. So now, recently, it's been downgraded to a dusk-to-dawn curfew. Therefore, Jos North, Jos South, and Basa local government are all under dusk-to-dawn curfew. The governor, nevertheless, warned troublemakers to desist from threatening the lives and property of the persons in the state. He says he has directed security to be very tough on those who are going about to cause the breaches of the peace. Above all, the governor has appealed to parents to enjoin their children and wards and to resist temptations to going around and causing confusion. He also emphasized the prohibition on procession still remains. Meanwhile, on the area of fighting criminality, The Ogun State Police Command has busted a syndicate that specializes in robbing sales operations at the point of sales operators. A four-man gang led by one Cain Jalili, otherwise known as Uluoma, has been busted. He was traced to Ekiti State, later to Kwara, and found that he had gone to Cotonou to attend the trial of Sunday Adeyemo. Upon re-entry into Nigeria, he was arrested at the Ogun and Lagos State border. Kehinde Yelili and his 4 accomplices had apprehended a POS operator, took away about 4 million, killed him, and set his body ablaze. The Niger Delta Development Agency says that the international oil companies are owing it about $4 billion. Minister for Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, said that the IOCs are required to provide 3% of their annual budget to the NNDC as statutory contributions, and they have been in default. He also said that none of the OICs have paid that. This points to the fact that the recent petroleum industry requires that 3% be paid to host communities. And it's the same IOCs that are supposed to pay this. If they are not paying their contribution to NNDC, I think this is a learning point. They have to be very strict about making that payment. Otherwise, the initiative of the Petroleum Industry Act will be a futility. If they are not paying their statutory contributions to the NNDC, how are we sure they will pay their profit required 3% to the host communities? So it's one thing to have provided it in the law. Something has to be done to make sure that that is done. Godswill Akpabio also said that 109 projects have been implemented by the NNDC, and he said that about 600 billion was owed emergency contract. But the good news is that many of those have not been implemented. Minister of Information Lai Mohammed says 7 out of the 10 issues at stake over the talks with the social media platform that was suspended in Nigeria are the only ones left to be settled. He says that the 3 are setting up a local office, paying tax to locally here, and thirdly, cooperating to regulate harmful postings on the platforms. Alhaji Mohammed says that we certainly want to put this behind us before the end of the year.
Well, the lead story from the leadership today, which is on the state governor's call on the citizens to arm themselves. He says it's better to buy arms than to pay ransom. That's according to the Katsina state governor. This is a call to arms, as it were. The question is, will you then be in a position to control the influx of arms into the country, into the state in particular, as private citizens seek to protect themselves, whether it is by means of handguns or whether by means of Dane guns or self-loading rifles? I know that it's a measure of his frustration in dealing with the many bandits and kidnappers in that territory. But asking individuals to arm themselves when we have very poor record keeping, so you don't know who is acquiring weapons, where those weapons are coming in from, this is going to be a tough one to handle, Kirian.
Yes, it's going to be a tough one, but I think Katsina has really suffered in the hands of bandits for a very long time. In fact, we may not blame the governor because, the state has indeed suffered. And these bandits are living in Katsina and they operate very freely, with impunity. The man is like, he's tired. And he said, look, if you can defend yourself, so be it.
Yes, Governor Bello Masari mentioned this last week, and he says that citizens will now have to defend themselves. This is out of frustration. Yeah. You will recall that he was trying to follow the Zamfara template by seeking to contact the bandits, negotiate to seek for them to down their tools. But that didn't work, and the insurgency has continued, the banditry has continued unabated in Katsina State. It is out of the federation, but there's no saying the fact that if you say everybody should defend themselves, it is a matter of calling to arms for everybody, every citizen. We are already facing challenges of small arms proliferation within our sub-region, which has become a very big challenge to accentuate criminality all over the country. So it has become a catch-22 situation.
Well, I mean, the other side buyer to this is asking citizens to buy arms or weapons. Is the belief that kinetic force alone will suffice. We are not. Why are we not seeing more investment in intelligence gathering equipment and facilities? And they're all over the place. That's to say, they can pick them off the shelf according to the manufacturers. I think that's more of what we would like to see: intelligence gathering and arrest and prosecution of those who are behind these incidents. Bayo, I would like to appreciate you for being around.
Thank you
See
very
you
much.
again on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. It's Good Morning Nigeria on NTA's network service. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation segment.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol. Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol Sure.
Dear compatriots, our country can be as great as we want.
Let us all commit ourselves to its greatness.
We must be willing to set aside our differences, unite and stay as one.
In our expansive landmass, human and material resources, and plurality lies our strength.
Let our challenges lead us to rediscover our common ground, and together, let's find solutions.
This will take some time, so it requires patience, tolerance, and forgiveness from every one of us.
Let all hands come on deck to protect and transform our country.
Let us unite and see each other not as adversaries, but as brothers and sisters.
Together, we can build a better Nigeria for ourselves and for the next generations.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA, with support from Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
We should understand that the well-being and the security of this country is the paramount to any government. Prior to now, we are doing more of defensive activities to protect our bases and fight the war when we are challenged or when an objective is attacked. But right now, what we do is to carry the battle into areas where the banditries or the Boko Harams or whatever, the Nigerian army has brought into its platforms the BT tanks, main battle tanks, helicopters, Augusta 135, the MiG helicopters, which can operate even in the night, the Super Tucanos that are about to be launched.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Leeds United will look to scrape themselves off the bottom of the table when they welcome Everton to Elland Road in their second game of the season. This Saturday, it's Leeds United versus Everton on the Premier League Live, showing on the network service of the NTA from 2:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijabu and powered by Integral.
Thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. And now, as a prompt for our conversation, segment, which is on mitigating conflict. Let's now take this background report by Ekene Ndulwe.
In recent times, Nigeria faces a plethora of security challenges ranging from farmer-heather conflict, banditry, and revived secessionist movements, among others. This situation has no doubt led to loss of lives of hundreds of thousands of people, while millions have been displaced and many more lost their property and means of livelihood. The recent killings in Jos Plateau State is indeed another shocker and one that has left many wondering on what has happened to humanity. What has happened to the sanctity of human life? About 30 persons traveling from Bauchi through Jos were attacked and murdered in broad daylight. This is one out of many isolated killings in Jos North and South local government areas. Recently, there were reports of 7 journalists, all staff of Plateau Radio Television Corporation, who escaped death by the whiskers when their vehicle came under attack by hoodlums at Dadinkowa in Jos South local government on their way home after night duty. To prevent full-scale breakdown of law and order, 24-hour curfew was declared by the state government and was eventually relaxed to last between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Security experts have suggested that aside imposition of curfew and arrest of suspects, there is need to deal with the root causes of these violent conflicts and ensure there is no reoccurrence. What are the reoccurring issues? How can it be mitigated? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be giving their perspectives in a moment.
Thank you very much, Ekene Ndulwe, for that backgrounder. Now we have guests with us in the studios to discuss matters around mitigating communal conflicts. Let's welcome Dr. Joseph Ochogo. He's an associate professor at the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Dr. Ochogo, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good to be in the studio once again. Good morning, Nigeria.
Also here with us in the studios, regular now on Good Morning Nigeria, is the Reverend John Joseph Hayab. He's Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. The Reverend John, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much, and Nigerians, good morning once again.
And from our Jos Network Center, we have Dan Manjang, he's the Honorable Commissioner for Information, Plateau State. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerians. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, actually, we're expecting Professor Muhammad Kabir Yusuf, Executive Secretary, Supreme Council for Feda Tijaniya Muslim Affairs, Nigeria, and Director of Peace and Anti-Conflict Journalism Research Center, Bayes University. He's going to be joining us in the course of the program.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin this conversation with Honorable Dan Majang, who is the Commissioner for Information in Plateau. Honorable Commissioner, we've had the benefit of the presence of the governor of your state, Simon Lalong, on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions. He's joined us from Plateau. He's also been with us here in the studios discussing a wide variety of subjects, including security. I recall on one occasion he was saying that, yes, the peace building institution that he is set up and is monitoring was yielding dividends. And at that time, obviously, there was peace on the plateau. And all of a sudden, it's another bloodbath. What is happening?
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. I thank you for the opportunity that I've been given. The peace we have enjoyed on the plateau is over a 6-year period. Since we came in 2015, we have tried to mitigate the callousness that existed before, and we are happy with the establishment with the institutional framework that we put in place, and with God helping us and with plateau people deciding to live, to coexist together. We have been enjoying that, but recently that has been ruptured, and the reason squarely is that there are people, it's multidimensional. One, there are people that are beneficiaries, they are crisis merchants, that has to be dealt with. There are people that out of the blues, they are criminal elements that would want to rupture the peace for different reasons, to be able to loot. And there are people that are seeking for justice, because in the past probably the people have been arrested, people have not been, they have not seen evidence that people have been tried, and so for different reasons, like I say, and some of the crises, but not this one, nosedive into religion. Some of them take ethno-religious dimension, some political, but most importantly, ethno-religious. But for this crisis that we witnessed about 10 days back, did not have that undertone, and so we have analyzed it and have come to conclusion without any benefit of the doubt that it is criminal elements that have perpetrated this act. They have perpetrated other acts like cattle rustling, like kidnapping, and I know we are going to discuss what modalities the state government has been able to put in place to make sure that we deal with situations like this. But essentially, those are some of the reasons that we have isolated to find out that we are going back to the dark days. Of course, there are, until we deal with the situation, most importantly, people that benefit from this kind of crisis, we profile them and deal with it and give justice to who deserves justice. We might be far from getting the solution. As I talk to you, there is seeming protest that is about to go on. The STF in Jos here has won of a religious sect. The Shiite wants to have a demonstration today saying that the health of their leader is in jeopardy. But we are on top of the situation. The security is taking charge. The GOC, 3rd Armored Division, is warning. Every government is warning. And so we hope that they will not want to dare authority, because we cannot afford any bloodbath again. Essentially, some of the things that have resulted to what we are witnessing, what we witnessed 10 days ago, the ones that I have isolated.
All right. Thank you indeed. From all indications, and of course going by part of your last statement, it does appear that there's still tension in Jos, the capital city of Plateau. We will return to you in the course of the program so that we can also perhaps delve into the intricacies of this continuous, unwanted killing in Jos. Now, let's come back here and ask Reverend John, what do you make of the statement put out now by the Commissioner for Information in Plateau State, and what do you understand really by the latest conflict, that of course took the lives of many in Jos? We just heard that some staff of the State Radio Corporation, were also attacked about 2 nights ago in Jos, that in our area.
Thank you very much. The truth about it is that today in Nigeria, the frequency of attacks and counter-attacks, either in Plateau State, in Kaduna State, in Zamfara State, in Ekiti State, in Delta State, you can just take a look at the entire country, has actually become too much and shows as if either we have not honestly and genuinely looked at what is happening to us and take responsibility as government and also as citizens, or we've really chose to be playing lip service to the entire story and only tell stories that probably suit us and suit those at that time. With due respect, just crisis did not just, what is going on now was not just 10 days ago. In the last 3 weeks, there were killings. It was all over the country that there were killings. The fact that one of the community leaders did even say that when they were killing, the military didn't even come to rescue. And they call and they say they've never gotten authority until one of the GOCs have to go and now say, okay, from now on, going forward, anytime there's killing or anytime there's any tension, call me. Nigerians didn't address that. Then 5 days or 7 days later, we had what we are now counting 10 days. Because when we begin to just look at this as if just one event, then we're not going to solve the problem. But when we look at it holistically, then we'll solve the problem. Our brother from Jos did say that some people are actually angry because justice has not been done. That's an admission that, truly speaking, in Nigeria, our inability to address conflict has been because those who perpetrate evil have never been brought to book. Those who perpetrate evil have never been arrested. The fact is that we fight conflict in Nigeria on just the pages of newspaper. We talk about conflict in Nigeria just on television. But in reality, have we really gone to the people? Have we really delved in to understand what is going on with the people and how to address it? Or we just feel by rhetoric we will change the story? The reality is the people are still in pains. People die. When there was killing 3 weeks ago, people die. Loved ones or people lost their relations. When there was killing 10 days ago, people die. Relations were also killed. So this cycle of killing just keep continuing. So sometimes when we come to really look at the problem in our states or in Nigeria, we have to be honest with what is really going on, and then we can be discussing how to find solution to it. But when we keep talking about the story as if we've won, then just it's one incident, there's a problem. The chances is that people who know very well what they are going through will now just assume, wait a minute, are we honest to this matter? Do we really want to know about this matter? Because people cannot also honestly share with us what they're going through when they realize that the narrative itself is false, cannot be rooted, and does not seem to want solution. So in responding to your question, my take is that listening to what is happening today, well, we've heard it from the commissioner in Plateau State, but is it just in Plateau State? Is it not a national problem? Is it not a problem that is happening in my home? Is it not a problem that is happening in your home? Is it not a problem that is happening in your community? Can we really honestly deal with this thing the way it's supposed to be? How are we even approaching it? Do we approach it by just speaking about it, or approach it by really going to the grassroots to deal with it? Or we just talk about it, the next day, new story come, we assume we've dealt with it, but after 2 days, because we really didn't do with it the other day, it will resurface. If it do not resurface as either religious, it will resurface as just some criminals doing, but at the end of it, it is lives are being lost. How can we live in a country where every day you are telling me that 10 people die, 20 people die, 30 people die, and nobody seems to care?
All right, the Reverend John Hayab, thank you very much. Dr. Ochogu, let's have your opening salvo on the spate of communal conflicts, whether over land, or whether over grazing locations, or ethnic, or just plain religious.
I think, thank you very much. I think I want to start on the basis of the fact that why these conflicts have been frequent and recurrent largely has to do with the politics of identity and the crisis of conflict management in Nigeria. And what I'm trying to say basically is that and society and all stakeholders are actually culpable, in this whole thing. Because the kind of conflict we suffer in Nigeria, particularly some of the conflicts that have been mentioned, actually are all drawn along identity lines.
That's right.
Either along religious line, along ethnic lines, or whatever kind of lines, that are. But largely, it's along this identity, ethnic and religious. And when you have that, you require conflict managers, that are neutral, neutral arbiter of the processes of conflict resolutions and all that. But in the last 20 years when these things happen, I've happened to have the privilege of being in some of the conflict sport, even when it was hot from as much as 2002, I think up till date. And when these things happen, the emotions are high. And when I mean the emotions are high, you really have to take a look at what it is as a conflict manager or as a responder, to detach yourself from the emotions, that builds up, as a result of this violence, as a result of this conflict, for you to be able to analyze properly, and put in the relevant measures that you need to put in. But along the line, in one of the studies that I've conducted some years back, it was glaring, that actors, both state and non-actors, were culpable, in terms of their partisanship in the processes of conflict management that we suffer. And even across the levels of government, across the different tiers of government, from the federal, the state, and at the local level. So, and when you find conflict managers being emotionally, attached or play partisan role, in the process of conflict management, that conflict will continue to linger, because the issues of justice are going to be skewed, in a way, that does not provide the right solutions that it needs to. And even the newspapers, are even guilty of this, because if you look at the reportage, of the various newspapers, depending on either the proprietor of the newspaper or the location of the newspaper, you see their reportage, and the sensation and the emotion, that is attached to the reporting skewed towards a particular party along identity lines, which is ordinarily not supposed to be. And even the international media also is culpable in terms of this reportage and in terms of the biasness, in reporting identity conflicts in Nigeria. So depending on where the person comes from. And I think that this is a very major problem. And that is why we appeal, for professionalism, professionalism among both state actors and non-state actors, in the management of conflict, where, the intervening powers or agencies, detach themselves, first and foremost. If, for example, as a Christian, you visit a place where you know that a lot of people have been killed, and all that, the first and foremost is to detach yourself. It's just like a medical practitioner. You have to detach yourself from the process for you to be able to diagnose and provide the right remedy into it, because if you get very emotional, around it too, you can likely do much about it. So the outcome is going to be different. I think that on what has happened in the plateau, in recent time, is to say that His Excellency, the gentleman, Governor Lalong, if you look at him, he's a gentleman. You can't take that from him. He's an easygoing man. And I think that what he has done since he came was to try to change perception of marginalization, and bring some sense of inclusion, in the governance process of plateau. But that does not mean that some of the issues, the key issues, have been dealt with. I know, of course, that they set up the Plateau Peace Building Agencies, and several other international NGOs too are working in the plateau, trying to build some of these things. But what is key, actually, is taking this initiative to the people in the grassroots, bringing them into joint programming and relationship building, from the different identity lines and the different fault lines of this conflict. Allow the youths of this place to know themselves, the youth of this other community to know themselves. Let them play football, play volleyball, do sporting activities and cultural activities together, and do a lot of exchanges among themselves, even in their marketplaces, such that an external actor cannot come into that community, to penetrate them. Because if something happened, they have a reporting system. And I can tell you that even Plateau State have an early warning, early response system, that was developed by Search for Common Ground and for the operation, the military operation that is there, where you report on the spot and all that. But we must go beyond that, to begin to engage the people directly, because peace itself is with the people. It is not standing in isolation somewhere, either with the government. It is the people, that can even respond, that can check some of these things. And the issue of justice that you've spoken about, and I think that is a trend, that is becoming common in Plateau right now, because I think this same thing happened about 2 years back when communities were being attacked, in Jos South and all that, and they weren't getting any sense of justice and all that. And suddenly one day when they were taking the deceased people, from the hospital and all that, on Sunday, I think by 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, I know I arrived just around 11 o'clock and checked into the hotel, And by 12 o'clock, people were looking sober for a program because the people have marched onto the road and the carnage was on innocent travelers. So that is where they think they could transfer their reprisal or whatever to. So I think that state actors, particularly the military, who have been trying their best in the last decades, in Plateau State and trying to cut this, they need to do more because they can't reach everywhere in the place there. So peace actually must be given to the people, and the people must own the peace, the process, and all that. But the government and other people, stakeholders, must facilitate this process as quickly as they can.
What is so worrisome about this development is the fact that the people concerned have been living together for a very long time. So what happened that people who have lived together, go to the same market, all of a sudden, became enemies, and it's becoming unabated, after several years of, peace, which of course the government of Plateau has achieved in the past 6 years, now is back again. So that means that the wound has not been healed properly. All right, now let's welcome Professor Muhammad Kabir Yusuf, Executive Secretary, Supreme Council for the FIDA Tijaniya Muslim Affairs, Nigeria, and Director of Peace and Anti-Conflict Journalism Research Center, Bayes University. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, now let's get your take, on the recent the development in Plateau. Of course, you've heard about it. Let's know your own views about what actually played out in the past 10 days.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. And this conflict that happened in Plateau State, to me, it's not just something that I've heard about. It has happened to some specific people who are described as Tijani brothers who are coming from Bauchi Zikir. And that particular event that they have attended, I have attended the same event as well. And I have passed through Jos going to Bauchi. Only that coming back, I passed through Kano. So it's something to me that I can say I have first-hand information. These are people that I was with the night before they died. So yeah, it's something that I have first-hand information about. Tijani people are known in Nigeria for being very peaceful people. They don't get involved in any conflict. And probably that is the reason why we have one governor describing the situation as a case of mistaken identity, which many critics don't find very, very funny. It's not right to describe them as that, but I will get back to that. So that was what happened, and in the last 10 days, many things happened. Sheikh Dar Usman Bauchi, the leader of that group of people, came to Abuja, met with the president. Many newspapers carried the news, people giving opinions and here and there. So, to come back to the issue, to me, this is an issue that has given a rare opportunity for the government to deal with conflict issue once and for all. Because for the first time, it is bringing everyone on board. It has started with the same problem of othering and then speaking about people from the very stereotypical viewpoint that these Fulanis and these are likely coming to wreak some havoc, and then the people that kill them, these are this Irigwe tribe and all of that. But you can see from the framing of the news on the newspapers and televisions and radio programs about it that we have been moving gradually from that framing into a much broader framing, from Fulani Tijaniya brothers to Fulani Muslims, then to just Muslims, then to Nigerians. And I see that as a very good thing because you see, a lot of the problems that we are having as a result of the mindset that we have, the biases that we come into the conflicts with. Journalists, most especially, are playing a very big role here because they are the ones framing the news. They are the ones setting the ball rolling, and all of us are following suit based on how journalists report the events. So when they report the event by, stereotyping the victim, you already feel like this victim probably deserves this because he is this kind of person, because he has this kind of identity that doesn't augur very well with the kind of identity that you represent. But by the time journalists move on to making the identity, as we know, is fluid thing. You can play around with it. So by the time they move on from that marginalization kind of thing into broadening the situation, I think that brings about an opportunity for reconciliation. And I see this play out in the last 10 days, moving from Irigwe tribe killed some Fulani to some Muslims being killed by just Christians to just Muslims killed by some people or some criminals in Jos. So what I think has happened and needs to happen here is that we have broadened our horizon, and we need to move on from calling ourselves Fulanis or Hausas or Muslims into calling ourselves Nigerian citizens. We have to realize that we live in a nation state. A nation state recognizes citizenship before anything else. Yes, I'm a Muslim. Yes, the person that killed those people are Christian. Yes, we have all these identities. But these identities can only help us when we have peace. But in the absence of peace, we have to realize that all of us are citizens, and when something like this happens, it's just criminals from among the citizens committing crime against another citizen or all the citizens. That will be the approach that will help all of us, and I have seen this happening probably for the first time in the history of conflicts happening in Nigeria, and definitely journalists have to come in trying to understand how to report these things. Like I'm doing research about peace journalism. And what we realize is that in the process of our research is that a lot of Nigerian journalism don't even know that there's something called peace journalism. And those who understand that there's something called peace journalism don't even know how to go about peace journalism, right? Peace journalism is not about reporting. It's not about like hiding the facts. It's not about reporting what you think happened exactly, but it's about reporting it in a way that is going to help the situation. It's reporting it in a way that you put the facts together in a way that they are going to make everyone calm, in a way that it's going to make everyone feel like, okay, I want to move on. That is what peace journalism is all about. And Nigerian journalists definitely need a lot of trainings and retrainings on how to get this right so that they will start reporting this conflict in the right way and in the way that it's going to help everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, Mohammed Kabir. We will come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's return to, excuse me, to Jos Dan Majang, Commissioner for Information in Plateau. There are a few things that, of course, have come up in the course of this conversation, including what you said. And listening to Joseph Ochogo, he did say that one of the ways to ensure that current peace-building efforts really gain traction will be to percolate it down to the people. Let the people take ownership of these peace initiatives. And I'm just wondering, I mean, it says, look, for instance, let them play football, play volleyball together. If you grew up in Plateau, and I imagine you did, Mighty Jets Football Club of Jos was populated by persons from different parts of the country. You had Igbo players, you had Yoruba guys, Sule Kekere, Sangaba Okoye, Kenneth Olayombo, and so on and so forth, who were there. I recall these names fondly because in 1972, they lost to Bendel Insurance in that year's FA Cup. And Kirian doesn't want me to remind him of what Bendel Insurance did to Rangers in 1978. But talking more seriously, Dan Majang, I mean, that was the story of the Plateau. And even after the era of Mighty Jets, I mean, people had romantic ideas about Plateau. And even when the Plateau started to simmer and sometimes boil over, there was the experience just about 10 years ago in Dadinkowa, where there was a community-based peace-building effort. And for a long time, all kinds of persons with identities, whether ethnic or religious, banded together, created their own early warning systems and early warning signals, and were able to live in peace. Again, I ask the question, what has unraveled, and how might we begin to patch back the pieces?
Yes, thank you very much. Before I get back to your question, let me quickly refer to what Mohammed had said. One of the problems that we have really right now is being able to, we should as much as possible try to avoid stereotyping people. When he said that Christians kill Fulani, those are the kinds of narratives that inflame passions. Mentioning of Irigwe killing Fulani, until this is profiled, it is very, very difficult, because those are the issues that we have been battling with in the few days that have passed, that this is an act of criminality. Arrests have been made, prosecution is going on, and it would be hasty for us to stereotype people and say that this is with certainty that this is what has happened. Because even if he was mentioning it in passing, it is something that is a very sensitive matter that we must correct the impression and try to avoid that. Having said that, the narrative which you have brought, I also have it. I know how we used to live when we were growing up with our brothers. In fact, I'm a Birom person. There are Birom people that bear the names of Fulani. You find somebody being called Buba. His father's name is Buba. You find somebody's Birom man. His father's name is Nyako, and Buba and Nyako are Fulani names. You find cross-cultural marriages. Fulani marrying Birom, Birom marrying Fulani, and other. If you go to Bokos, you find that Fulani marrying Ron people and the rest. And back to those days of the mighty jest, like you say, there's a lot that needs to be done. But what has happened today is multidimensional. The press, we saw a screaming headline about what is not verifiable in one of the dailies, and we became worrisome. Saying Irigwe, stereotyping the Irigwe as militia, that Irigwe militia killed Fulani Muslim worshippers, and that 50 other people are at large. Those kinds of headlines, without even verifying them, inflame passions all over the state. And more so, everybody today in the era of this social media has become a journalist. If there's any profession that has been bastardized in recent times, it's journalism. You cannot go and do that with lawyers. You cannot wake up one day and become a lawyer. You cannot wake up one day and become a medical doctor. But you can wake up with the press of the button and you are a journalist. And it becomes very difficult now to even ascertain which story is right. And life about itself, if you begin to want to talk about regulation, the journalists again would say that this is democracy, we want to gag the press and stuff like that. But I can assure you that there's a lot of messages, there are lots of messages that pass through the social media that inflame passions, that people rely on. The social media is a double-edged sword, I agree. You can use it for good, but a lot of things that are passed through the social media are not helpful in any way. Again, if you look at the narratives that have been going on through the social media, some of it largely is because of the inflammatory nature of the messages that pass across to the people by the religious leaders. Some of the religious leaders are really inflaming passions by their messages which they pass. This one has to be dealt with. Little wonder, even though we have to exercise restraint, little wonder you find some states trying to regulating religious activities in their states. But we must also talk to ourselves. Those of us that mount the pulpit, either as Christians or Muslim clerics, must check the content for which we put out to the public. My brother, Reverend Joseph John Hayab, is there. He's a theologian. He's a pastor and theologian. I am also a theologian. And he does know that in the course of our training, in theological institutions, in theological training, there are issues that are raised of morality, there are issues that are raised of systematic theology, and they remain in the four corners of the classroom. By the time you bring them to the pulpit, it becomes counterproductive of what you are trying to do. And so what we have to choose exactly what we will tell the public, and we have been talking about communication. Communication, we should be seen to be doing communication for development. And that is what is the problem. Today, you do not know which story to believe. Today, you go to church or you go to mosque, and the messages that come are those that you can, invariably, you should not be able to swallow. You cannot push it through your throat. And one of the paramount rulers on the plateau once said that the way Christians and Muslims behave in this country calls for them to apologize to the traditional worshippers, because there is no traditional worshipper that will go and begin to cajole you to come and join his sect. If you misbehave in their own, by their own standards, it is instant punishment. And some people have also gone to say that they think that the God of today, I don't share in that kind of that kind of thinking, that the God of today is too compassionate, because it was instant judgment in the Old Testament era. But I'm not advocating that we need to go. We need to preach love. We need to preach peace. We need to preach forgiveness. And these are the issues. We have lost our values. It is great. We must retrace our steps from our homes, from our traditional institutions, to make sure that we teach values in our curriculums. There is a Center for Value and Attitudinal Reawakening in Plateau State by Reverend Professor Pandang Yamsat. That institution should be strengthened so that we regain our values. The way we have lived, in the secondary school I went to, one of our classmates, when we did WAEC, it was a Muslim that took the best prize for Christian religious studies. These are some of the issues. We can go on and on and on, and we are left with the question, what has really happened? For the past 6 years on the plateau, everybody, because there has been justice, because we have organized communities, and we continue to do it tremendously. The Peace Building Agency has been doing quite a lot. All these things that you are saying, playing football, the youth playing football together, we have been doing. The STF on the plateau and the security generally has been doing fantastically well. And the religious institutions have been doing fantastically well. But what I'm saying is that there are issues. In fact, what is happening in Plateau State is that there are people that live outside of Jos, and they speak about Jos as if they don't know anything. Some people have not even been to Jos, and the way they speak about Jos in the negative is so alarming. I can assure you that the level of development of hospitality, the hospitality industry that is growing in Jos today, we have not seen it in the last 10, 20 years. Many people are relocating to Jos. Even as I talk to you, before this situation, there was no week, no weekend. You come weekends in Jos and you will not find space. You will not find any hotel that is empty. And that meant, well, it means employment. It means IGR for government. It means we are really a hospitable people, and that is where we are. The issue is that we must look at our reportage, like we have isolated. We must look at our homilies from the various religious leaders that we have. We must also look at the issue of information that passes through the social media. There are instances where you see messages being passed through the social media that are clearly not of images from Plateau State or even from Nigeria. They are being recirculated, something that has happened 3 years. I've had to caution one of our elders. I asked him, I said, if you are passing messages that have been circulated about 3 years ago today, what do you stand to gain by that? What do you stand to gain by that? And if you should, by your standard of training and your age, you should not be the one to be seen to pass messages like that across. So these are issues that are multidimensional, and people talk about government should do this. Yes, we agree that we have a responsibility, but all hands must be on deck. Government is a segment of the whole. And this is what I can isolate for the moment about what's happening and some of the things that we need to do.
All right, gentlemen, this conversation is actually centered on the mitigation of conflict and how, well, you have spoken well about just what it used to be in the past. How can we bring that back? He has also mentioned something on several occasions that the issue is multi-dimensional, which in fact means that there are issues, there are unresolved matters. There is also an issue of ethno-religious thinking of the people. There's also the attitude of the people. There's also part of its illiteracy among adherents of different religious organizations and what have you. And again, talk about ethnicity as well. The one that happened 10 days ago, a particular community was pinned, to be responsible for that. And again, they may be retaliating what happened to them in the past. So that is why I want to buy into the idea of the issues being multidimensional. And I want to bring in Reverend Joseph Hayab once more. We have already painted a scenario, about Jos and what happened and all of that. And again, in your first, in the opening remarks, you also said that it's also happening in other parts of the country. All right. So how do we begin to tackle this issue? How do we begin to, trace our steps back and see how we can ensure that these things don't continue, because it's already escalating?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kiran, for throwing this question. I think we've talked a lot about the issues, we've talked a lot about the problems, but I think sometimes we just talk less about the solution. How do we find our way out? In most of the submissions here, there were things we can see we are agreeing upon. One, there's a problem of communication. Then why don't we form a network for communication for peace, where young men will be involved, women will be involved, faith leaders will be involved, traditional rulers will be involved, people across different faith will be involved in such network for communication for peace. Why do I suggest that? Experience have shown that the Muslims, the Christians, the tribal groups, and different interests used to have social media platform where people would just come, send a message among them. If everybody is of the same tribe, everybody is of the same religion, they send messages that are stereotype in nature or prejudice in nature, and they just instigate themselves. We don't have a network where both Muslims and Christians are sharing the same story, but Plateau and Bauchi and other people are sharing the same story, so that someone out there who belongs to the other group will just say, wait a minute, I saw this story, and this story you are saying is not true. Because when it was presented at this network forum, we realized investigation have shown this story is not true. Because religious leaders, one of the privileged positions we have is we have people voluntarily listening to us, voluntarily obeying us, voluntarily wanting to hear our own view when there are issues. So such network for peace will help to douse or to clear issues or misinformation that are being spread. But when people continue to communicate among their tribe, among their religion, among their group, we will continue to have this mix-up and there is no connect. Number two, we talked about community peace-building approach, which I shared strongly about, because peace is about the people in the community. Sometimes we talk about bandits. Bandits don't live in the air. They live among the community. When we talk about criminals, criminals don't live somewhere in the moon. They live in the community. So when we continue with this community peace-building approach, we will help to address issues. But here is the mix-up. It seems at the moment, most of our approach to community peace-building is more holistic and still within the city. When we meet with people in the city, we call it a community peace-building. It's not enough. There are people out there who don't belong to this holistic thing. I'm sorry, in Global Peace Foundation, one of the experiences we've had in the last 8 years is that peace building where some powerful names, whether they call themselves stakeholders or key people, just walk to one hotel and have discussions and televisions is being beamed around them, have always just been for show, because you don't impact deeply into the people. So peace building is about the man out there who can actually carry the dagger. There are men out there in the motor park. Nobody goes there to even talk about peace with them. When we just say, we've done it, it is all over the radio, that man is not going to read newspaper. That man is not going to even listen to radio. That man is not even watching what I'm saying now because he has more access to TV. But that's the man who will quickly run, hit someone on the street, hit the other person, and because of his name, then identity comes in. You say, oh, because the man who hits the other man is Joseph, so it's Christian. Or because the other man who hits and kills the other man is Abdullah, oh, it's Muslim. But nobody seems to go to them and now connect them with the reality of this conversation. So the conversation has still continued to be more about meeting of the elites in a big hotel or in the presence of camera, and we think that's peace work and that's a community peace building. That is not yet, it doesn't make an impact when it comes to the community. Those people you feel you don't really care about them, you don't know about them, are the people that needs to come into the conversation. After the killing, when you arrest them and start asking them, the fact that some of them will just tell you that we just saw someone running and we thought it's an enemy and we hit him. They were not doing it for their tribe, neither were they doing it for religion. That's why I wanted this conversation to be about how can we stop the killings of Nigerians. But not the killings of Muslims, not the killings of Christians, not the killings of certain identity. Nigerians, citizens of Nigeria should enjoy the protection of the state and the protection of their country, that they don't just travel and get killed. They don't just live in their homes and get killed. They don't just have a little misunderstanding with people and then it results to killing. How have we been treating issues of misgiving among neighbors in this country? It's also part of the reason why we are where we are. So we must have a system. Our lawyers and others are doing what they call alternative dispute resolution. We've still not impacted that in the life of our people. People still believe that if anybody hits me, I take him to police. Unfortunately, we have a system in this country, or not quite a system, a practice that when you take such a person to either police or you take such a person to court, the court may not really rule in fairness. They're triggering more problem. So where are those alternative dispute resolution people coming? And can our court system help that when people come to report each other's, and it's a matter that is civil and so simple that you can help to just reconcile them? Because when people are not reconciled deeply in the heart, they will not be reconciled by a court or a police. As a pastor, I believe in someone that says, blessed are the peacemakers. And I've always tell people that there are a difference between being a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. Peacekeepers are those people who come and force you to accept peace. But peacemakers are those who help you from the heart to develop peace, so that even when there is no peacekeeper, you will still love your neighbor, you will still celebrate your neighbor, you will still appreciate your neighbor. You draw us to memory lane. Some of us grew up, I did IRK. When I sit today and talk with Muslims, when they start saying that, I just tell them, brother, I know this one, because I attend classes on IRK. I never wrote an exams, but I attended classes. My father was not troubled because I attended IRK classes. My mother was not troubled because I attended IRK classes. Today, we don't even want to help our children to have knowledge. If a child of a Christian attend a school where anything Arabic, hey, they want to Islamize him. If a child of a Muslim attend a school where something is mentioned about Bible, hey, they want to make him a Christian. We are reducing the knowledge of our children. And then we are talking about ignorance. Ignorance is not just about lack of going to school. Someone can go to school, but he's still ignorant because he was not exposed to learning beyond what he knows. Everything he knows is about what they say in their house. So parents and community religious leaders, let's allow our children grow in knowledge. Let's allow our children understand the other faith. Understanding about the other tribe, understanding about the other faith, do not change your tribe to another tribe. Do not change your faith to another faith. So these are part of the things that is lacking. So we have to look at how we even present our education curriculum. The last time I appeared here, I talked about our educational system. It's also aiding in this crisis we are seeing. Because when children come to school, the first interest of the teacher is he wants to teach my child how to read and write. And experts have shown that that never works. Children don't need that at certain age. But when they learn relationship, that relationship will help them to even know how to read. Then when they know how to read, they will now add relationship plus ability to read and then live a better life in the community. But when they know how to read and they don't understand relationship, then they will be educated, but they will be educated beast because they know how to read, but they don't know how to relate. And relationship will change these things we are seeing. It is sad that every day people are reminding us what happened in 1972, in 1982, in 1960. Please, can we also show them something that will happen now so that our children and our great-grandchildren will come to know that in our time, we too did our best to live a peaceful life, a life of community living, and we have something good to transfer to them.
All right, Reverend John Yohaya, thank you very much. We are taking a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
Ministry of Works and Housing has the responsibility to help improve the quality and the quantity of the road infrastructure assets, which are the roads and the bridges and the highways. At the moment, we have over 13,000 kilometers of road network under repair, reconstruction, or rehabilitation out of the existing 35,000 kilometers of federal road network. These 13,000 kilometers are comprising about 850 different contracts which the ministry superintends across Nigeria. We are fulfilling the mandate of our ministry to expand the connectivity of Nigeria's states and by extension the towns and villages through road transport.
He's falling sick so frequently, either fever or stomachache. I keep him away from junk food.
She also feeds me apples. She says an apple a day keeps...
If you want to keep germs away, then also wash your hands regularly with Dettol soap.
Meaning?
Germs and disease spread through the hand also. For this, use Dettol soap. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, exclusively with Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State.
Since assuming office, our rescue administration has pursued the path of peace and reconciliation and restored confidence among people of different ethnic, religious, and political persuasions. Peace is back on the plateau. We are building world-class infrastructure in roads and opening up opportunities for innovation.
The edition is a compendium of mind-blowing stories for your reading pleasure, ranging from entertainment, economy, sports, media, politics, family, and lots more. Pick up a copy and keep abreast with issues and trending features within our space. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
It's the dawn of a new era on NTA's flagship program, The Sports Parliament, revitalized with lots of varieties, including feedback responses from viewers. Sports Parliament, the weekly sports show that exposes all the intrigues in the Nigerian sports sector and projects an agenda on the way forward for Nigerian sports. On NTA every Thursday at 10:30 p.m., running for 1 whole hour, discussing sports. The parliamentarians are more committed than ever to enlighten the viewers as the Sports Parliament takes it to a whole new level on the floor of the House. Keep a date with the Sports Parliament as motions are moved every Thursday on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, with his gavel to harmonize sports resolutions. The House have it.
Leeds United will look to scrape themselves off the bottom of the table when they welcome Everton to Elland Road in their second game of the season. This Saturday, it's Leeds United versus Everton on the Premier League Live, showing on the network service of the NTA from 2:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijebu and powered by Integral.
You are welcome back, and you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I want to bring in again Dr. Joseph Ochogo. Dr. Joseph Ochogo, on the one hand, amongst the many ideas that are floated in the course of this conversation, we say engage in peace-building efforts, engage in alternative conflict resolution mechanisms. Earlier, you also talked about the crisis of conflict management. I'm just wondering, if on the one hand there is a clear recognition that part of what we see, if not much of what we see, are just acts of criminality, why has it been so challenging, as it were, to bring the perpetrators of these criminal acts to justice? Or do we just say, okay, you know, as part of resolving this crisis, let's bygones be bygones? So we bury them, and then those who feel hurt and have not received any justice for their losses, either of their property or of their loved ones, now wait for an opportune time, and then we are back to the cycle of revenge. So that a law just begins to take on, which is the law of lex talionis. Namely, you hit me now, I wait for an opportune time, I hit you again, I take revenge. Why is it difficult for us to say, look, let perpetrators of these criminal acts be brought to justice along with other mechanisms for peace building?
Yeah, I think one of the major problems with crisis in Nigeria, particularly conflicts and whatever, is the nexus between conflict, crime, and our politics. The violent perpetrators are actually connected in terms of those who perpetrate political violence, criminal violence, and violent conflict. And when the perpetrators are connected to the politics, it's difficult for the justice system to take its course. What I'm trying to say is that the real perpetrators of violence also have a political connection. It is the same actors. It's not easy to carry cutlass and cut somebody. Let's be very frank with ourselves. Or to carry knife or gun to shoot at somebody. Let's be very clear about that. So what that means is that there will be a rogue, a criminal, you know, within a community or wherever, you know, who is a known rogue, who is a known criminal, you know, and people know them and know the kind of people they are, that these are violent perpetrators, you know, that they are actors in their community or wherever they find themselves. So these same actors, from a few couple of scoping studies that I've done, you know, across the country, is the same people during elections that are hired. After elections, they begin to take to crime. It's the same group of people that serve as militias. It's not easy to kill a human being. Let's be very frank about that. And if you look at a place like Jos, for example, that has suffered conflict in the last close to 20 years, those perpetrators of violence, those who have tutored themselves, learned the art of killing, what has happened to them over the years? So in times of relative peace or peace of the graveyard, they are embedded within the society, ready for if there is a little altercation, they can easily take anything here and go for the jugular for a kill. So when you have those kind of things, we now need to begin to unpack these connections. The first for us to unpack is to disconnect the political element. You know, particularly our politicians now, from patronizing political violence. So therefore, if you disconnect the political actors from the perpetrators of political violence, you can now begin to find a sense of justice. Because once they are caught in criminal act or in violent conflict act, and there is a disconnect from the political angle, the justice system will easily take its course. But if there is a connection, it becomes extremely difficult, because the covert influencing, you know, of the entire process of arrest, when the military arrest, or when the police manages to arrest to do their work, if they pass through the policing system, the prosecution system, they go to the court, and then before you know, the covert influencings are there. Let's be very frank with ourselves as Nigerians. And this is why the dispensation of justice becomes very difficult. Some of these people get the best of lawyers. They get the best of lawyers or whatever to go and pursue their case. And on technical grounds, oftentimes judges of the courts might just look at it and say on technical ground they go, and the person goes back to the society again. So we must begin to isolate the criminal and violent elements in our society. And the first way to do it actually is to disconnect the political class.
This is precisely
from
part of Ochogu. Thank you very much. Kirian, you and I were on set yesterday. We were discussing the proposal for the establishment of an electoral offences commission to say that how might it be effective once it gets into operation without severe or acute political interference. This is precisely the challenge of implementation that you are going to face with that commission, because you have seen the connection you have brought in now, the usual thugs, Kirian, you know, usual thugs and political elements and so on and so forth. Just go and do it, nothing will happen to you. And once the man is released, the first thing he does is to have a wrap of Indian hemp in one hand and a bottle of alcohol in the other to say that it's about the law.
All the young men that are involved in thuggery are all backed up by some political bigwigs. There's no doubt about that, because they will tell you that nothing will happen. You say, I'll do this and nothing will happen. And certainly nothing will happen. Even if you get the person arrested, in the next couple of hours, you receive a phone call, to say, look, release him. And he goes. All right, once again, Professor Muhammad Kabir Yusuf, coming here again. You listened to the Dan Manjang, Honorable Commissioner for Information, Plateau State. He made reference to your opening comments, and I believe you'd want to address that. And also, at this point of the program, we'll begin to look at the solutions. How do we now prefer solutions to some of these, conflicts that we're talking about with the Plateau State, that is centerpiece of what we're discussing this morning. How do we begin to prefer solutions? Because the Commissioner also mentioned that the issues are multidimensional. Now, how do we begin to put the pieces together to say, look, you are maybe Fulani, maybe Birong, maybe Hausa, and what have you. As long as you live in Jos, you are a just citizen, so to speak. And, let's begin to build peace. The governor has tried in the past 6 years, actually, to maintain peace, up to this moment, that we have now begin to see something that we are afraid that may escalate if care is not taken.
Okay, thank you once again for having me. You see, while listening to the Commissioner, a quote from Professor Jordan Peterson of University of Toronto, clinical psychology, comes to mind. He says people hate it when you force them to think in very high resolution. And quite honestly, this is the time for us, all of us, to come together and force ourselves to think in very high resolution. We're talking about two things. We're talking a problem, and we are thinking about solution. When we are thinking about solution, we might afford to think in low resolution. But while talking about the problem, trying to diagnose the problem and find out what's really happening and why it is happening, what is the pretext under what is happening, we can't afford not to think in very high resolution. We have to find out who is this perpetrator, what are his obvious and not very, very obvious identities. Why only him doing this, not the other part of the community? Like, for example, one of the speakers here mentioned that in some of the scoping they have done, they realize that the same culprits perpetrate the same crime, either it is conflict or it is political thuggery or tribal conflict, whatever. It's the same set of people. Why this set of people? And what is it that this set of people have in common that makes them have the confidence to keep doing the same thing, thinking that nothing is going to happen? We can't afford not to think in very high resolution in this respect. Then after this, when we come to think about the solution of this problem, then we can decide what part of their identity should we take for legal reasons. That is when we would decide, okay, everyone here is a Nigerian citizen committing crime against another Nigerian citizen for the ease of taking action, and so that we don't create a situation whereby the problem is escalating. That is the reason we need to do that, because ordinarily, human identity is very fluid. We have many different identities, and we wear that identity like a gown, depending on the situation and convenience. Like, for example, those people who are killed in just problem in the last 10 days, if the same set of people, the very same set of people, are coming from a market and that event happened, the narrative right now is going to be different. If those set of people were killed in a different place, the narrative is going to be different. So where they are coming from constituted part of why we are talking about them through the same identity that we are talking about them today. And we have to do the same on the culprits as well. So having said this, I think we can't avoid dealing with many different narratives because we live in a democracy that believes in freedom of expression. And social media is a necessary evil, if it is at all, that we have to live with. Good things come from it, bad things come from it. We can't avoid these different narratives. But among all these different and bad narratives, some of them, like the narrative that is saying that these people actually are having a coffin full of weapons, and these people are not actually worshippers. All of these narratives, I read one of those actually in one of respected newspaper, National Daily in Nigeria, very surprisingly. And these are people that I know personally, right? So no one can come and tell me stories about these people. I know the people I'm talking about. So there has to be one grand narrative. And that one grand narrative has to be championed by good journalists. And that is where journalism comes in. At this point, I think we have to, as a nation, decide what kind of journalism we want to have. At the level of normativity, different countries decide the kind of theory of journalism they want to adopt, whether it is libertarianism, whether it is social responsibility theory, whether it is developmental, whether it is participatory democratic journalism, whatever it is, we have to decide, and we have to decide based on the situation. And while deciding, we have to put into consideration that we have a dicey situation in our country. Our country is very what it is in terms of security and all of that. So
I'm sorry, Professor Mohammed Kabir, let me pose this question to you so you take it along the point that you are espousing. This conflict has happened, and the aftermath is what we are dealing with. Experience from the various conversations that we have had so far has shown that if this matter is not well resolved, it's not properly resolved, people, of course, might say, in the meantime, no problem, but let bygones be bygones. They go to their respective homes, but they would not forget. And then they wait for an opportune time and spring their own revenge. How do we avoid that cycle?
Exactly. You see, it seems to me and to everyone reasonable that all of us agree that we want to have peace. No one wants to live in an unpeaceful environment. And we also agree that no one wants that peace to be at his expense. I don't want a peace that will be at my expense if I'm killed or if my people suffer some of these problems, and we move on. No one wants that for himself or for his people, right? So I think that is what we need to do. We need to bring justice into the whole thing. When someone is a victim of this conflict, that person wants to see justice being served. And that is the only way we can avoid reprisals, we can avoid revenges, we can avoid trying to retaliate. And immediately after the justice is served, another thing that we definitely need to do is to bring in national orientation into this, right? We need to, because you can't stop people from having in their mind the thinking of what is the identity of this person and what is it that if I do, I will feel like I have taken revenge. You can't stop people from having that thought in their mind. So what you need to do is to reorient people, reorient the society, give them the narrative, because the thing is, all narratives can be valid at some level, right? All narratives can be legitimate at some level. But we have the narrative that we want to advance in the society. The government has to have that. The government has to have a deliberate policy about the narrative it wants for itself, it wants to advance to people, for what reason. So after serving justice, then you bring the national orientation into it to try to advance that narrative that will make people think along the line of peace, not revenging, not coming back for reprisal and all of that. This is what you need to do. But as I said in the beginning, we really need to think in very high resolution about the diagnosis of the problem, and then, because that is what is going to give us the opportunity to decide, okay, which option, which alternate route are we taking? Because you have plenty of them. So you decide which one are you picking, and why are you picking that? As a government, as a people, as journalists, as community leaders, we decide which one we are taking and for what reason, and then we try to advance it, because that is the only way we can attain a peace.
All right, Prof. Well taken. Let's return to Jos, where we have a Commissioner for Information. Earlier on, he informed us that Governor Lalong of Plateau State has had a meeting with the stakeholders and leaders of different communities in Jos. of course, looking for a way to ensure that what happened does not escalate. Let us into what transpired in that meeting, or what has been agreed upon, because what we're now talking about is to ensure that this does not escalate, and there should be no revenge or whatsoever, because that is, of course, what brings about the issue of conflicts and killings all over again, even after peace has been made. What played out at the meeting, what are the takeaways by those leaders who attended the meeting with the governor?
That gladdens our hearts as Plateau people. What is that scenario? We know them. They are divided across party lines, but in the past week or 2 weeks or even days, you see some of the gladiators coexisting, accepting the fact that Governor Lalong is the governor of Plateau State. Last week, General Jeremiah Hussaini, came visiting to Government House. That is what has not happened in a long time. It was in public glare. He came under the guise of the chairman of North Central Elders. That was widely publicized, and it gladdens our heart. Just 3 or 4 days ago, when we had the stakeholders meeting, the immediate past governor of Plateau State, Jonah David Jang, came to Government House for the first time in 6 years to sit down. And even yesterday, if you watch public television, you would see it completely, the entire Plateau State, the death of Ibrahim Mantu brought the entire Plateau State together. Everybody from senators to House of Reps members to Governor Jang himself to the minister and every Plateau man went with the governor as an entourage to go and commiserate with the Mantu family. Thereafter, they moved to the government lodge together. And this is what we need to be seeing more often, that this is the time for governance, that Governor Lalong is no longer a governor of the APC. I'm not the commissioner of APC. I'm the commissioner of information for Plateau State. The governor is the governor of Plateau State. And that is why, if you look at the level of appointments in this administration, it cuts across all the 53 ethnic nationalities on the plateau. There's no ethnic nationality on the plateau that is not being involved at one level of governance or the other. Back to the issues, the resolutions that took place on that day, is that we agreed that we will cascade these meetings to local governments and to communities. Already the state has employed and trained over 3,500 youths to help in intelligence gathering across the 17 local governments of Plateau State. We need to cascade. The traditional institution has to come in because they are in direct contact with the people. The local government chairmen and councillors, I agree with what one of the discussers said. You go to peace, the Reverend Hayab said, you go to peace building resolutions and then you stay in hotels and the people that are involved the people that perpetrate the acts are not being involved. We need to look at that. So that was one of the resolutions that we looked at on the plateau. And another thing that we also resolved is that justice must be seen to be served. No matter whose ox is God, if you are found culpable, we should, as much as we must face the wrath of the law. For example, in Plateau State, we have signed the anti-land grabbing bill. The governor has signed it, and has signed an anti-kidnapping bill. So all these ones are in place that people need to take advantage. For people that feel their land has been taken, should go to court and seek redress. For people that have been arrested and are suspected kidnappers or rapists, they should be taken to court. They should face the law, and they should face the courts. And then once they are convicted, Like somebody raised yesterday in another medium, he said in the past 8 years or 16 years,
The Honorable Commissioner for Information, Plateau State, well, we are sorry about that. Time is not on our side again. Thank you indeed for your contribution this morning. Dam and Jang, Honorable Commissioner for Information, Plateau State. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning. We also like to thank Professor Muhammad Kabir Yusuf, Executive Secretary, Supreme Council for Faida Tijaniya Muslim Affairs, Nigeria, and Director of Peace and Anti-Conflict Journalism Research Center, Bayes University. Thank you, sir, for coming here this morning. And Reverend John Joseph Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. Thank you for your contributions. And Dr. Joseph Ochogu, Associate Research and Policy Analysis Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, IPCR. We also like to appreciate you for being part of our show this morning.
Thank you.
All right, before we leave you, this is some sports news.
Taiwo Awuni scored 2 goals and provided an assist as Union Berlin thrashed Phoenix side Cubs 4-0 in the Europa Conference League first leg playoff tie on Thursday. The Nigerian striker opened the scoring in the 7th minute and got his second goal on the 31st minute to make it 3-0. He provided the assist for Union Berlin's second goal, scored by Max Cruz in the 29th minute. Awuni has now scored 3 goals in his last 2 games for Union Berlin. The return leg comes up in Germany next Thursday, and the winner over 2 legs will progress into the group stage. Meanwhile, Nigerian forward Simeon Nwankwo has linked up with Serie A newcomers Salernitana. After weeks of negotiations, Nwankwo finally joined Salernitana after undergoing his medical earlier on Thursday morning. The deal is believed to be a loan with obligation to buy for a total of €6 million, including bonuses. Chelsea midfielders Jorginho and N'Golo Kante and Manchester City Kevin De Bruyne make up UEFA's 3-man shortlist for Men's Player of the Year. It is the first time in the 11-year history of the award all the men's player nominees have been midfielders. Jorginho and Kante won the Champions League with Tuchel's side, beating De Bruyne and Guardiola's Manchester City in the final. Jorginho also won Euro 2020 with boss Mancini. The men's coach of the year nominees are Manchester City Pep Guardiola, Chelsea Thomas Tuchel, and Italy boss Roberto Mancini.
All right, let's get some tidbits from the foreign scene.
Turkey President Tayyip Erdogan on Thursday urged Europe's leaders to take responsibility for the migrants now fleeing Afghanistan. Since the Taliban's takeover this past weekend, tens of thousands of Afghans have scrambled to evacuate and many have crossed into Turkey. Turkey is home to some 4 million refugees, the majority of them Syrians who fled their country's civil war. The UN estimates Turkey currently hosts the most refugees worldwide. Speaking after a cabinet meeting, Erdogan said Turkey could engage in discussions with a Taliban-led government in Afghanistan regarding their common agenda. Meanwhile, Uganda's Foreign Affairs Minister says the government has not yet reached a formal agreement with the US to take in refugees who have fled Afghanistan in the aftermath of the Taliban seizure of power. Addressing a parliamentary committee, Mr. Odongo said discussions were continuing, but no decision had yet been made. He added that the U.S. had approached Uganda because of its track record on hosting refugees.
All right, so that's it for Good Morning Nigeria for today and indeed for the week. The program returns on Monday, same time, 7 in the morning. Until then, do enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kirian. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.
responsibility to help improve the quality and the quantity of the road infrastructure assets, which are the roads and the bridges and the highways. At the moment, we have over 13,000 kilometers of road network under repair, reconstruction, or rehabilitation out of the existing 35,000 kilometers of federal road network. These 13,000 kilometers are comprised in about 850 different contracts which the ministry superintends across Nigeria. We are fulfilling the mandate of our ministry to expand the connectivity of Nigeria's states and by extension the towns and villages through road transport.
Star TV network is a joint venture between the Nigerian Television Authority and Star Communications of China. The 1,000 Villages project is an initiative that was agreed between the, China and African governments in FOCAC. The federal government selected the 1,000 villages, and out of the 1,000, every local government in the country got at least one village. There are 2 projector TVs which were supposed to be installed in communal viewing centers. The government allowed the traditional rulers of each community to decide where to site the projector TVs. And then 20 families also got 20 decoders for free. For the communal viewing centers, they didn't have to pay any subscription. The subscription is already paid by the Chinese government for the next 5 years. And they had access to more than 20 channels.
Arise, O Nigerians! Let's applaud the courage of Flight Lieutenant Abayomi Dairo, aka the Aggressor, for his skillful and dogged escape from the bloodthirsty bandits in the forest of Zamfara State. 3 hearty cheers also to all military and security personnel who are tirelessly protecting fellow Nigerians from insurgency and banditry while maintaining peace and order. Nigerians are proud of Abayomi Dairo and all our gallant men and women in uniform for sacrificing so much to keep us safe. We admire your courage and we say thank you. God bless the armed forces. God bless Nigeria. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
This is the network service of the NTA.